Okay, so I will be reading Night Killers to you. Okay, so let me get it ready. I have everything in an article. Now, this is for your second read of the article, so you should have already read it the first time. Hello to all the other classes, Mrs. Marshalls and Mrs. Potners. So I'll be reading to you. Usually it's, one of the others. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm focused. Let me go ahead and get started. So let me share my screen. That way you can follow along. And I'll get rid of my picture. So, Night Killers. This is the caption for the picture. Like the mythical creature it was named for, the vampire bat drinks its victim's blood. This bat usually ignores humans, preferring to drink the blood of large animals. But in a pinch, it looks for blood wherever it can find it. They come out at night, flying just 3 feet above the ground. They are constantly on the lookout for blood. Their four-weight fangs glisten in the light of the moon. They hunt by sound and by smell. As they swoop past, they make an angry, sputtering noise. These night killers are vampire bats. You don't want to be around when they're out looking for a meal. Vampire bats live in Central America and parts of Mexico. They are not very big. Most weigh only about 1 ounce. Their bodies are just 3 inches long or the size of a human thumb. Even with their wings stretched out, they are only 8 inches wide. Still, these tiny creatures can kill a cow, just as Cesar Murillo, a cattle rancher in Mexico. In 1995, vampire bats killed more than 50 cows in his herd, using heat sensors in the nose. Vampire bats find a vein close to the surface of the victim's skin. Legend says they suck the blood out of their victim, but that is not true. Instead, they use their sharp teeth to cut the flesh. Often they make their incision behind an ear, an elbow, or hoof. Then they lick the blood from the open wound. Vampire bats can drink their own body weight in warm blood at one meal. That can take a while. Sometimes their gory feast will last as long as 20 minutes. Because vampire bats come out at night, their victims are usually asleep at the time of the attack. The bats have a special chemical in their saliva. It numbs the victim's skin. That way they can sink their teeth in without waking the victim. The bats use a second chemical to keep the blood from drying up while they eat. The real trouble with these nasty creatures isn't the blood they take away, it's the diseases they leave behind. Vampire bats carry several deadly diseases, including rabies. That's how they killed Cesar Murillo's cows. As they lapped up the cow's blood, they infected the cow with rabies. Within a few days, the cows began to act very strange. Murillo described how the disease affects cows. They start to lose their ability to walk, he said. Their back legs buckle when they try to stand. Then they start trying to crawl. They get this desperate look in their eyes. A short time later, they die. As bad as the situation was for Murillo, it was much worse for people in Nicaragua. There, in 1999, vampire bats started to attack humans. One morning, the parents of two young girls woke up to find vampire bats drinking the blood of their sleeping daughters. In another case, a small girl died from rabies after being attacked by vampire bats. In all, bats attacked at least 22 people. These attacks were most unusual. Vampire bats prefer the blood of large birds, cows, horses, and pigs. They live in deep caves or old wells, so normally they don't go near humans. But in 1998, Hurricane Mitch struck Nicaragua. That storm brought record breaking rains. Many caves and wells were flooded. Bats were forced out of their rural homes and into places where people lived. Heavy rains had also helped trigger the outbreak of bat attacks on cows in Mexico. In one Nicaraguan town, people had to fight the bats for several months. Every night they're after us, said one farmer. The cows, the horses, and us too. Many people in the town rubbed garlic on their animals. Aris Mahia explained why. Mahia was one of the dozen bat killers hired by the government. The bats just don't like the odor of garlic, he said. But it only lasts one night. If you don't put fresh garlic on the animals the next night, the bats come back. Mahia found a more permanent solution. His job was to kill as many vampire bats as he could. He started hunting each night as soon as the sun went down. Slaying bats wasn't a nice job. It's kind of strange work, and not everyone in Nicaragua likes to do it, said Mahia. You can always tell us by our scars. One vampire bat left an ugly scar on his left hand. It bit right through the thick gloves he was wearing. Mahia didn't hunt vampire bats with a gun. He didn't try to expose them to sunlight, and he didn't try to drive a stake through their hearts. Those weapons are used only in fiction when the villain is a human vampire. Instead, Mahia went after the bats with a net. If he could find where they lived, he would cover the entrance with his net. He could then trap the bats when they tried to come out. If he couldn't find the bats' homes, Mahia used a different approach. He would have a farmer put all his animals in one corral. And this way, the cows, horses, and pigs would serve as bait. Then Mahia would wait. He knew the vampire bats would find them in a few nights. When they did, he would be waiting for them with his net. After catching a bat, Mahia would smear it with poison and then let it go. The poison was strong enough to kill the bat, but it acted slowly. That was the plan. The released bat would fly back to its home. Other bats in the colony would then lick the poisoned bat in an attempt to clean it. Or sometimes the bats would fight and bite the poisoned bat. Either way, the others would swallow the poison. Within a few days, all the bats in that colony would be dead. For every bat we capture, he said, we can kill up to 10 or 15. To many people, poisoning vampire bats sounds cruel. After all, most of the time, these tiny creatures are not a big threat. They stay away from humans and attack only a few farm animals. But if heavy rains force the bats to look for food in other places, they can become a huge problem. No one wants to wake up to a vampire bat licking blood from his or her toes. When bats start to attack humans, bat killers such as Aris Mahia